Just testing out the microphone. Happy Sunday. Hey.
Study it. Yeah, these are soft ones. The ones I've seen have firmer stuff against there. So this might be enough. Nice to have the softness.
Easier to move around.
Right. But you can see how big there it is. Cromlech. Damn, that was the word I was trying to say.
Cromlech.
Last night. Nice, huge cromlech. So your rod is about the size of this one. And now, so study it a little bit. See where it's placed?
Yeah.
Just enough so that, you know, it's covered, but not excessively. Because your windows are so tall, you don't, you're trying to make it not a straight people. Not just us, but I'd hate to see the next people take it down because it's too difficult to do.
And I didn't want motel curtains that are stiff and like vinyl in, just nicer.
Right, and so if this is the style that Home Depot has, then we'll research.
It's funny, it was picking up ambient noises with good captions. Was it something about curtains or something?
And from you I received, which is in great. That's from the script that I remember.
Of course, we use the mic today somehow, so I think you can handle that, all right?
I can.
Just kind of put it in this general direction over here. One each.
No,
You don't want each.
no, I don't, it's not good to have it on the guitars, you know, so.
Oh, well, of course.
Trying to position myself.
Sure, yeah.
But it's also cold mornings. I'm trying to strike a happy medium.
Yeah, yeah. It's this time of year, I can't stand this. I can't, January's my worst month.
I get that.
Yeah, just like stress.
It's like that for a lot of people. Good morning.
Good morning. All of your adjustments are perfect, and what's, that you suggested, I didn't fix it in the menu, just play what you know to play already.
Oh, great. I don't suppose you have a copy.
Yes, I do.
I knew I could count on you. You're so, you're an organized person.
I've been here like 3 or 4 months, so I don't know how. Basically, in the general direction.
Yeah,
Here it's-
that might be about as good as we can get.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
So, this is just like the final readings that I cut off, but.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Feel free to tear it apart, that's yours.
I will do that. Car.
Thank you. And you-
So, yeah, I agree. I'm really excited to be here.
Excited to have you. And I'm excited for a couple other things we may be doing. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks so much.
Gonna find the right chair. No, I think if you go over here. I'm not big on, it's not. Sure, I can make a few changes based on your, I probably heard you about happy. Yeah, I got a new idea.
I was 15.
Oh, okay.
If we had good quality graduated size guitars when I was a kid, I would have started when I was 10. I was begging for a guitar from that time on, I think. Mom wouldn't let me start until my hands were bigger, which is smart. Do you play?
No. No, when I was in college, I thought I would take up the guitar.
You didn't have time, did you?
It didn't work out.
I,
I'm not inclined toward that kind of thing.
what, music, you mean? Or just turning down my volume?
I don't know, just,
Messing around with music.
I like to hear it.
If you can hear it, then you can do it, I think. I personally. That's what I tell my students.
Are you gonna tell me the list?
Yes.
Oh, no. You don't introduce the song. That's the beauty of music.
Right.
Oh,
After the, I would say just close by. Left or just as soon as that was over left.
yeah.
Before we cancel that.
Just roughly say it now.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you don't have to say it.
I have a bunch of students who came to me and later on in their lives and said, I started playing when I was 15 and I quit when I
So
was
is there
5.
any hymn like?
I just didn't have the time. So can I start again?
No, it's second song.
Can you please start? It's not possible.
And are we doing choice?
Yes. Yeah, the script is designed to be as it is. Be flipping around.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yes, you know,
So there is a lot.
I like
There's
teaching.
love.
Yeah, there is a lot. Just circle that. and cross it.
Wonderful.
Just people know.
You have to have a lot of patience.
Right, that's the one that's.
Yeah, it's the normal.
And
I have that kind of thing.
They're great.
I don't have all the ones that I need, but I have that, I have that kind.
Yeah, X is circle. And then the two cross out.
It'd be cool.
So then this is going to, this is, the extinguishing is Judy Wendy.
Well, you're halfway there.
And,
Fifth, sixth word.
The vote home is what number?
1064.
Look back on,
Okay, I'm gonna look.
had I think I had two 67 Dodge Darts, one right after the other.
Got it?
They
Yeah,
lasted
I saw it.
forever, even driving all over the place. I just love those things. And it- And I had a 91 F-150,
Oh, okay.
back when gas was cheap. Remember that?
That was quite sporty.
It was wonderful. It was red. I named it Ruby so I could take my love to town.
Really.
It sounds strange, but I remember seeing the first female driving a pickup truck.
I bet.
Wow.
I got a lot of whistles because I was living in a
I just.
largely Hispanic neighborhood. And it was pretty gratifying. I looked really tall from the waist up and I was driving this big red truck. And I got a lot of this woo stuff in the street. It was hilarious. Yeah. And toward whistling. which it was just delightful. English was the second language in that part of town, and so that's a really good thing for anybody to live in a neighborhood where you're not speaking the language everybody else speaks for a while.
Unspoken is Beth is going to read the story for all ages called Orpheus. And when she's done with that, just play a little interlude with little music. Doesn't have words because then I'm going to wait for you to be done before I get words.
Where is that?
You'll know it because she's going to be standing up and reading a children's story. It's going to be fairly close to the beginning, and it's from Beth.
Any words?
Yes. Yes.
You're, oh,
So I'm speaking after.
that's, okay, so that's where you got humble hymn.
Okay, well, that's fine. If that's what you want. Whatever you play, I'm gonna be happy with. I probably did, but if you would like to put that somewhere else, I'm fine with it being where Stuckey's is. You had said something about maybe it's better after the silent reflection. Yeah.
I don't remember anything.
So, do you need a pen to? Sorry.
There's
There's no mistakes. There's no mistakes. Nobody knows.
You know, that's all in the humble hymn. God bless our mistakes.
There you go. Here's a pen.
I've got one.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're back. You're back. Healthy as well.
Cashmere hoodie. It's Nordstrom Rack had a sale.
I love it.
I have one every year that's got lots of sweaters, so I try to comb through all the crap and find something. And this year it was this. I wish they'd had more colors that suited me. I would have bought it.
Still
Or-
good.
It's comfy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hi, Tanya. Hi.
Because it's getting towards.
I guess it is. Trying to find my,
It's all
find
good.
my songs.
Oh, chair.
Good morning. If all you enthusiastic people could find a seat, we'll begin our service. What? Ding, ding, ding. Welcome. Welcome to our Vashon Island Unitarian Universalist service. My name is Julia Lakey, and I'm going to be your service leader today. And if you're visiting, please participate as you feel comfortable. You're invited to stay and introduce yourself in conversation following the service. Our congregation is committed to individual freedom of belief. We welcome diversity. We seek to promote a sense of community and foster religion which enriches the spirit. We're a mostly lay-led community, strengthened and enriched by weaving together the volunteer contributions of members and friends. Our community is supported and guided by our minister, Reverend Victoria Poling. As we begin our service, please let's all take a couple of breaths to become fully present. And also the sound I hear is make sure you've silenced your phones. So a couple of deep breaths, the clean, sweet air. And release. And again. So that we can bring our attention into this communal reflection and sharing. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Swabash, the Coast Salish Native people. The Puyallup people have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step towards true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land and beyond. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived here, you belong here. At VIUU, we maintain our sacred space. We care for and beautify the places where we gather. We make time for quiet contemplation or prayer, reverence and spiritual expression, tears, laughter, and joy. And now for our chalice lighting. In an amazing beginning, I'd like to invite forward Kim Kambach and I'm getting goosebumps, Maya Seifert.
Let us light our chalices together in person and online with these words. In the beginning, there was light. Our story begins here in the source of wonder. We kindle, cultivate, consecrate. Be here now, together, your light blending with mine.
Got to admit, that's an awfully special chalice lighting after so much healing and so many prayers for you. So grateful. So today, our speaker is Julie Shannon. Julie came to VIUU as a youth educator in our religious education program. And she began attending services and has been a contributor to our community in our programming committee and in other volunteer roles. Today, she'll be telling her story and sharing what she's learned about the power of beginnings. Julie?
These opening words are from John Wesley. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, as long as ever you can.
Uh, So this, I've decided to make this the first one. This song is called Humble Hymn. It's, I'll use my Ethel Merman voice. So it was, I can't pronounce the name of the man who wrote this. He's Icelandic. He's a young writer. I think he's magnificent. I don't know if he wrote it in his second or third language. But if there ever was a hymn that was just tailor-made for this congregation, I don't know anyone that's better. It was a deep cut, just kind of down the rabbit hole, and it was, the person who found it, at least for our community, was Rebecca Kuzma. And so I want to kind of sing it in her memory. I wanted to learn it in her memory anyway. And I miss her dreadfully. So the humble hymn. We walk a lifetime and lose our treasures, but in the end our fortunes are measured by our fading scars. Without our failures, there's no redemption, and so we take our chances to fall and rise with equal grace. God bless our mistakes, let our bubbles break, let us be thankful for our foolish pride. The air between us is filled with silence. Our words were never spoken for fear of our rejection. So tell your stories and ask your questions. Regrets were made for losing. Embrace our imperfections. God bless our mistakes. Let our bubbles break. Let us be thankful for our foolish pride. God bless our mistakes. Let our bubbles break. Let us be thankful for our foolish pride.
Been honored to read the story for all ages. And today, this is a story about Miss Rumphius, children's book that has a place in our attic somewhere. I refuse to let it go. I was honored to be asked. The Lupin lady lives in a small house overlooking the sea. In between rocks around her house grow blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. The Lupin lady is little and old, But she has not always been that way. I know. She is my great aunt. She told me so. Once upon a time, she was a little girl named Alice who lived in a city by the sea. From the front stoop, she could see the wharves and the bristling masts of tall ships. Many years ago, her grandfather had come to America on a large sailing ship. Now he worked in the shop at the bottom of the house, making figureheads for the prows of ships and carving Indians out of wood to put in front of cigar stores. For Alice's grandfather was an artist. He painted pictures too of sailing ships and places across the sea. When he was very busy, Alice helped him put in the skies. In the evening, Alice sat on her grandfather's knee and listened to his stories of faraway places. When he had finished, Alice would say, "When I grow up, I too will go to faraway places. And when I grow old, I too will live beside the sea." "That is all very well, little Alice," said her grandfather, "but there is a third thing you must do." "What is that?" asked Alice. "You must do something to make the world more beautiful," said her grandfather. "All right," said Alice, but she did not know what that would be. In the meantime, Alice got up and washed her face and ate porridge for breakfast. She went to school and came home and did her homework, and pretty soon she was grown up. Then my great aunt Alice set out to do the 3 things she had told her grandfather she was going to do. She left home and went to live in another city far from the sea and the salt air. There, she worked in a library, dusting books and keeping them from getting mixed up, and helping people find the ones they wanted. Some of the books told her about faraway places. People called her Miss Rumphius now. Sometimes she went to the conservatory in the middle of the park. When she stepped inside on a wintry day, the warm, moist air wrapped itself around her, and the sweet smell of jasmine filled her nose. "This is almost like a tropical isle," said Miss Rumphius, but not quite. So Miss Rumphius went to a real tropical island where people kept cockatoos and monkeys as pets. She walked on long beaches, picking up beautiful shells. One day she met the Baba Raja, king of the fishing village. "You must be tired," he said. "Come into my house and rest." So Miss Rumphius went in and met the Baba Raja's wife. The Baba Raja himself fetched a green coconut and cut a slice off the top so that Miss Rumphius could drink the coconut water inside. Before she left, the Baba Raja gave her a beautiful mother of pearl shell on which he had painted a bird of paradise and the words, "You will always remain in my heart. You will always remain in mine, too." My great aunt, Miss Alice Rumphius, climbed tall mountains where the snow never melted. She went through jungles and across deserts. She saw lions playing and kangaroos jumping. And everywhere she made friends that she would never forget. Finally, she came to the land of the lotus eaters, and there, getting off a camel, she hurt her back. "What a foolish thing to do," said Miss Rumphius. "Well, I have certainly seen faraway places. Maybe it is time to find my place by the sea." And it was, and she did. From the perch of a new house, Miss Rumphius watched the sun come up. She watched it cross the heavens and sparkle on the water, and she saw it set in glory in the evening. She started a little garden among the rocks that surrounded her house, and she planted a few flower seeds in the stony ground. Miss Rumphius was almost perfectly happy. But there is still one more thing I have to do, she said. I have to do something to make the world more beautiful. But what? The world is already pretty nice, she thought, looking out over the ocean. The next spring, Miss Rumphius was not very well. Her back was bothering her again, and she had to stay in bed most of the time. The flowers she had planted the summer before had come up and bloomed in spite of the stony ground. She could see them from her bedroom window, blue and purple and rose-colored. Lupins, said Miss Rumphius with satisfaction. I've always loved lupins the best. I wish I could plant more seeds this summer so that I could have still more flowers next year. But she was not able to. After a hard winter, spring came. Miss Rumphius was feeling much better. Now she could take walks again. One afternoon, she started to go up and over the hill where had she not been for a long time. I don't believe my eyes, she cried when she got to the top. For there on the other side of the hill was a large patch of blue and purple and rose-colored lupins. It was the wind, she said as she knelt in delight. It was the wind that brought the seeds from my garden here, and the birds must have helped. Then Miss Rumphius had a wonderful idea. She hurried home and got out her seed catalogs. She sent off to the very best seed house for 5 bushels of lupin seed. All that summer, Miss Rumphius, her pockets full of seeds, wandered over fields and headlands, sowing lupins. She scattered seeds among the highways and down the country lanes. She flung handfuls of them around the schoolhouse and the back of the church. She tossed them into hollows and along stone walls. Her back didn't hurt her anymore. Now, some people called her that crazy old lady. The next spring, there were lupins everywhere. Fields and hillsides were covered with blue and purple and rose-colored flowers. They bloomed along the highways and down the lanes. Bright patches lay around the schoolhouse and the back of the church. Down in the hollows and along the stone walls grew the beautiful flowers. Miss Rumphius had done the most difficult thing of all. My great aunt Alice, Miss Rumphius, is now very old. Her hair is very white. Every year there are more and more lupins. They call her the Lupin Lady. Sometimes my friends stand with me outside her gate, curious to see the old lady who planted the fields of lupins. When she invites us in, they come slowly. They think she's the oldest woman in the world. Often she tells us stories of faraway places. When I grow up, I tell her, I too will go to faraway places and come home to live by the sea. That is all very well, little Alice, says my aunt, but there is one third thing you must do. What is that? I ask. You must do something to make the world more beautiful. All right, I say.
The world is full of great stories, and even that story has a story. Over 25 years ago, Beth gifted me that story, and the copy that she read from was one that she had inscribed to me. And it was one of the nicest things that anybody had ever said, because in the course of our conversation, she called me her Lupin Lady. And beginning with tears is not a bad thing. Sometimes our wounds can become wisdom and our words can become a stepping off place. There's a Quaker tradition in an unprogrammed Quaker meeting, which is what meets here on Vashon, that we don't prepare our words, that we allow the universe, if you care to call it a higher power or God, speak through you. And that a true gathered meeting is one in which everybody finds the connections and the threads, and there's a feeling in the room. And that comes from something shared. And one of the ways in the human tradition is that we share things is through story. And so this theme of the month, the practice of story, is powerful. We have all sorts of stories in religious organizations. So we have Bibles that begin with the stories of creation. But story is a stepping off place. It's like stepping out into the world and believing that the universe is going to suspend you to go forward, that you're not going to fall flat at the very beginning. And it's risky, it's dangerous, it's scary. And I admit to having some trepidation before coming up here because I want to control and I want to have the perfect words, but they're not always mine to put in order in the right way, even though I fancy myself a writer. Story is organic and it grows like lupin, and we throw out seeds and they sprout. And sometimes we don't know what color we're going to get. Sometimes we don't know if there's going to be enough rain to support it. Sometimes we don't know if the ground is fertile enough. And I have to let go of all that and allow the universe to move through me. And that leads to the beginning of my story. I originally came from the East Coast, a big city by the sea, the New York area, starting in New England, but quickly, as I reached my formative years, I was in New Jersey. And New Jersey is a pretty crowded place. There's the common question is what exit? You know, when you say you're from New Jersey, they say what exit, and that's off the turnpike, so you can place where the person is. And so I was closer to New York than not. And eventually I attended Rutgers University. I was at Douglas College, the women's college, and all of my friends disbanded for their junior years, and I made my way out west. But in my formative years, I was raised as a Jew, and I had a bat mitzvah, and the portion of my Torah portion was Bereshit. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, there was light. And it made me very, very aware of how often I began things. Now, maybe it's my ADHD that went undiagnosed until my 50s, but I would begin a lot of things. Finishing was sometimes tough. And I had to be really dedicated to finish things. And I learned a lot about my failures to finish. But somehow it never stopped me from starting new things. I don't know if other people have that experience, that we have this drive as human beings to start new things. If there's a need there, sometimes we have to step up and take a chance. In the Jewish faith, making the world more beautiful might possibly be called tikkun olam, repair of the world. Sometimes that shows up in art. There's a lot of Jewish actors and artists out there. There's a lot of Jewish thinkers. Tikkun olam, repair of the world, was a big thing. It leads to political action. And they also say when Jews gather, there may be 7 Jews, but there's usually 8 or more opinions. Because Jews are oftentimes less interested in answers than we are in questions. And having lots of stories is part of a Jewish tradition. It's why Jesus, who was a rabbi, told so many stories. Stories are open to interpretation. The Jewish faith in studying Torah has collected the stories of scholars and put them in the Talmud. And when you study Torah, you can't just study the Torah. You have to study the Talmud, the stories of the story. So there's a layering. After Bereshit, I quickly found that I needed an outlet. I was growing up, I was becoming an adult, and I became bi-coastal at age 14. I attended an alternative school, and my parents really encouraged my own confidence. And there were some medical issues going on at home, and my parents had their hands full with a lot that they were doing. And I began traveling the country. Back in the day, a 14-year-old could buy plane tickets easily and bus tickets, and nobody really questioned. I had the money in hand, and I went following the Grateful Dead all across the country. And I saw a lot of exotic places, just like Miss Rumphius. And I sowed a lot of seeds out there. I met a lot of people, and I have some great memories. And that bi-coastal nature followed me through college, when in our junior years, all my friends and I split up and I made it to the West Coast. And then again, when we came back and got together, and I was graduating and had no idea what my new beginning would be, because what do you do with an English degree when you're a woman in that age and people can't seem to put it together that I have 7 years of drafting in German and calculus. Maybe I should be a technical writer. But no, women were teachers. So I got a quick master's and went up to Alaska and was on my own in a strange new world with a new beginning. And I taught for a little while, and they say the odds are good when you're a woman in Alaska, but the goods are odd. And so at age 27, I came down to Seattle and quickly found Vashon, because Vashon was sort of city but country, close to Alaska and not. And while I was in Alaska, I also discovered the Quaker faith, and during all my travels. And I went to a different Quaker meeting every week for 4 weeks, starting in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and going as far flung as Fairbanks, Alaska, and then down to Anchorage, and finally back down to Juneau. And then I ended up in Seattle. And for many years, I was attending Quaker gatherings. The Chavurah began picking up here on Vashon, and I began attending Quaker and Jewish traditions and Buddhist traditions. And for a long time, I was also worshiping at the Methodist Church, and realized that my strength was in interfaith work, because I felt that there was a need for connection, and it's all one thing, just a different flavor. So in this time of growing up as a human and growing up with a faith tradition and expanding that, I also began working for a startup in Seattle that began right here on Vashon. And I was employee number 18. And during my tenure there, 3 or 4 years, the small company was bought by AOL, which then bought Time Warner. So I went from an 80-person company to an 80,000-person company in the course of 6 weeks. At which point I decided I was getting married. I was 6 weeks away from getting married, and I was off to a new beginning. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have the faith from everything that I had done to step off to a new beginning. There's been a lot of new beginnings in my life. Beginning a family, huge beginning, and seeing them through. My husband and I, Daryl and I, were really clear that our job was done if we could raise confident children who knew they were loved and had basic skills to survive. They could cook. They understood how money worked.
they could model themselves on relationships that were open and honest, and that they could bring their truth to the world. And I am really excited to be stepping into this new beginning as my children begin to launch and they start their beginnings. And I have been practicing letting them live into their stories, not mine. Lots of new beginnings. And I just feel so grateful for having them. Beginnings have power because they affirm in each moment that we ourselves have been gifted the grace to be in that moment. And we can begin, and we can be afraid as we begin. We can begin just knowing the one thing that we love that which is in front of us. And so for me, beginnings have always been about where's the love? The stories are important because they invite somebody else to tell their story. The faith communities are important because not only do they give us a place to be heard, and they also give us a place to listen. There's always that saying, you've got one mouth and two ears. I do feel that sometimes people need invitations to tell their stories. And each week we have an invitation to share our joys and concerns. And we have to find ways to tell our stories succinctly, but to continue sharing. And it's always a delight when I get chapter 2. Somebody comes back and says, remember I shared a few weeks ago. This is how it continues. And these are the ties that in community really bear fruit. It's why we encourage people to keep coming back. It's not like an OA meeting or an AA meeting where the power is keep coming back because we're needy and hurting maybe, or even that isn't a deficit. It's admitting that we're alone sometimes and that our life can be lonely. And in recognizing that, we have an opportunity anew to say, maybe there's a way I can share myself and not be so lonely. Maybe it's not only the old friends, but the new friends, beginnings. So I find myself enriched by my faith and scared by it. And it's not full of answers. I'm not certain. I have a lot of opinions, and some of them ebb and flow and change. My family is basically a family of atheists. My husband and children do not ascribe to believing in God. I can't help it. And what I love is that part of my story is they accept me despite our differences. And as I go into this next 4 years, it's tempting to say, oh, this is a continuation of just this horrific story. And yet I find myself facing it differently. In the next couple of weeks, we have a new beginning. And you know what? It's going to be a freaking crazy story. It's going to be nuts. And how we as Americans, as humans, and as people of faith, look at the wounds we might be suffering from it, we get to turn that into wisdom. And I had no idea that this was the story that was happening now. And as I begin reeling this in and putting a finish on this beginning, I'm realizing that our faith communities often are places where we have action. We begin things, we speak out. They're also a place of refuge. And as we face this new beginning, we have the ability to decide here and now the tenor of our story. Is this going to be a story of division? Is this going to be a story of being right? Or is this going to be a story of listening and hearing and healing? Or is this going to be, who knows what this is going to be? And why would I limit it by telling you what I think it should be? What I want to hear is the stories that we're going to build out of a total unknown in this next 4 years. And I urge you, as you go through your wisdom gaining, wounding situations, to share them in this congregation, in this group of people, as I have shared mine from time to time. Be risky. Be risky. Share story, because it's the fertile ground where we can make a new beginning. And new beginnings are powerful. Be in your power. Understand that we're all on the same path and none of us has it easy. But as you strive to define your story and decide what the legacy you're going to leave will be, just know you are leaving a legacy as long as you share your story. Thank you for allowing me to share mine. And I hope that you've taken away something that works for you in the week. And I really hope that you'll bring it back and continue to share your story with all of us. May it be so.
Thank you, Julie, for that wonderful sharing and the invitation to all of us to figure out how to share, how to build, how to be people of action as we move into new beginnings. So let's take a moment of reflection and let all of what she swirled around us see what sinks in.
Julie suggested a song that I had I haven't played in a long time. Thank you for reminding me of this. The New Beginnings Club, the ADHD Club, yeah. So my whole family, except for my mom, she could think in a straight line. The rest of us are poster kids for ADHD. And so, and that includes all the way back, I think, from what I know of our family's history. And this story was from my grandfather, who fought in the First World War. And there were a number, we've all heard about the Christmas Day armistice that happened in World War I. It was almost an official event. Not quite, but it's historically remembered that way. But there were more than one of those that happened. There was one that happened in Hungary at the very beginning of the war. And at Christmas Day, it just seemed like that was the day to change everything and put it all aside. My grandfather was present it was Christmas Day and the fighting was close in France. And while everybody put their weapons aside and got to know each other, my grandfather, true to Eggleston tradition, wandered off in search of something else, apparently a French girl with some eggs. It's just stranger than fiction all the way around. He got separated from his unit and he ended up with another one. He didn't see any of his army buddies from that unit for years until he ran into one of them at a gas station in California. After escaping the Dust Bowl nightmare with his kids and the car full of all the kids and everything they owned and all the chickens and whatever. And so this is called Meeting Stucky at the gas station. So thank you for asking for that. The Grateful Dead? Seriously?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay. Southern California, you can get used to it, but it's not the paradise that I had expected. It was a gas station, 1936. What kind of miracle comes to a place like this? We circled around like a couple of sharks, stealing looks as we filled our cars. It took a long time till we both said, Jesus Christ, I thought you were dead. 20 years before, it all happened on Christmas. Back in the war, in the stumps of the Argonne forest. You could call it a hiccup of peace. We thought the war was over, but it was too good to last any more than 24 hours. Just long enough to shake the hand of last night's target, today's young man. Endless mud on foreign land and light like silver in an angel's hand. I was lost from the rest of the men when the shooting started over again. And the second touch of God that day was in how in the hell I ever got away. I haven't seen you since. I'm not sure I was ready to see a long dead friend filling up a 34 Chevy. You said every year with a bottle of whiskey, the boys get together and we toast your memory. But here you are alive somehow. What are we gonna drink to now? Come over and meet my wife. Don't ask so many questions. How many times in your life has a miracle happened?
Another story. So we'll now pause the recording as we prepare our hearts for joys and concerns of offertory. So as members and friends of the, oh, there's a love. Sorry, I jumped. First, there's a love. Thanks, Beth.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding on. I rest in this love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding on. We rest this love.
We needed that. Now, moving on to the offertory. As members and friends of the Vashon Island Unitarian Universalists, we commit to supporting our congregation. The financial resources help us pay speakers and staff, support our social justice programs, and maintain our building. So please support VIUU with your pledges and offerings so that we can continue to be a vital community. Our congregation engages beyond our walls for peace, social and economic justice, freedom of belief, and protection of our planet and its inhabitants. This week's offering supports our beloved community. And greeters are passing around the baskets. And now we're going to join in singing We Give Thanks.
We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away. Time we share with love and care. We give thanks for this precious day. For this precious day, gathered here far away, for the time we share with love and care. For this precious day.
And because it's so, so important, our closing words are a repeat to let it really sink in. Do all the good you can by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, to all the people you can, for as long as ever you can.
Now Judy will come up and extinguish our chalice.
This is a never-ending story. Night falls and dawn comes, sure as the breath of life. We sleep, we dream out of darkness, story is born again. This light is never extinguished. Really, it is the manifestation of our own eternally burning bushes. We carry this light for the week and bring it back to consecrate our next gathering. Tend to it each day. Let it witness your story. Live into the light and return to us, bringing back your light to share.
So thank you all for participating in today's service here, and we hope you'll stay and join us for refreshments. We've had able help from Kat on the music team and Dennis Lambert on the tech team. And the program group was this, I believe. And Julie coordinated and was our speaker, so she wore many hats this morning. And our monthly theme continues to be story. So now is our announcement time. So if you have an announcement to share relating to a VIUU activity, please come up and let us know about it.
Hi. So next week, Social Justice has the service, and thanks to Catherine and Tanya, we are moving right ahead. Community Passageways is going to be rejoining us. And for those of you who don't know, Community Passageways is a nonprofit that works to, I think their official language is to change the pipeline of school to prison to school to life. And so they work with people who have been on the street or in prison and trying to help them find the skills and the support in order to change their lifestyles. So Ken Sinclair and Michelle Montgomery will both be with us next week. If you guys haven't heard them before, they're truly a treat. And I think for those of us who live on Vashon, we do tend to be a little bit bubbled in our lives. And so this is a nice opportunity to hear a little bit more about what other people's lives are like that are not nearly as padded as ours, I would say. And the quote that Catherine and Tanya suggested that we use for this is from Martin Luther King, and it was, "Violence is the language of the unheard." So next week, of course, next week our offering will also be for them. So please bring checks and you can make them out directly to Community Passageways.
All right, so Kat is now going to lead us out with Blue Boat Home, which is 1064 in the blue hymnal, teal hymnal. And then we can sing Go Now in Peace right after that, before refreshments.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep. My ship's companions, all my kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I've been never harbor nor port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.